Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Gaik and in today's video we're actually going to code a new feature. If you're new to the channel, I highly suggest that you go watch my previous videos, which will give you context on what my StarCraft 2 bot, Sajuuk, is, and I also described a high-level overview of my code, so it will help you out understanding what we're doing here. But even if you didn't watch them, you'll be fine. This feature that I want to code today is actually getting more upgrades because I've mentioned it previously. My bot will use its build order, which will research ranged weapon upgrades level 1, and will never go ahead and research more than this. So I'll be capped at 200 pop, and I will still be running Zerg missile level 1. So let's get started. The way we're going to implement this is through a manager. So here is my bot class, Sajuuk bot, and in init managers we have these managers, so economy, war, and creep, and we're gonna create a new one. So it's going to be very similar to the creep manager. Oh wait, hold on, not sure if you can see properly, so I'm gonna just zoom a bit more. Tell me in the comments if it's too zoomed in or not enough, I'm not sure. So yeah, please let me know. It's gonna be similar to a creep manager, and so we'll go ahead and create a new class. It's going to be the upgrades manager, and this guy is a manager. We're going to implement all the methods. So the way the managers work is that they have build fulfillments, which are essentially the result of the build requests that they queue in. They need to define an assigner, dispatcher, and releaser. In this case, it's not going to be very useful. This manager is going to be a bit weird because it's not going to actually control units. It's just going to look at the game state, figure out which upgrades make sense, and request a build order. So in this case, most of these methods will be empty, just like the creep manager. So we're gonna quickly grab that here. So we have dummy assigners, here dummy assigner, dummy dispatcher, and the dummy releaser. It looks a bit weird. When I first created the managers, I did not intend for one to not have units, so maybe I could provide a default implementation instead of having to copy this over all the time, but for now I'd rather have it there and have to think about it twice when I code this. But yeah, in this case it makes total sense. So assign units will not going to be assigned in any units nor dispatching, and everything will happen inside this manage function. We'll also have to deal with the builders later on. So we've created our upgrades manager, which does nothing right now. We'll make sure to create one here, the upgrades manager there. So by doing this, all we do is add the manager into Sajuuk, which will automatically ask what the managers want to do and treat their requests. All right. So here, yeah, how we're going to do this? We'll do something very simple for now. My bot just builds roaches, so we're just gonna assume all the army units that we have are roaches, and we're only going to look at roaches. Later on, when we have multiple unit types and more interesting unit compositions, we'll come back here, revisit, and consider all the units that we have. But dealing only with roaches will help us out to do something simple, but that will probably just work fine. So as I said, in the build order, so if we get our build orders, we have the 2 base roach, which is the build that I use. That's defined, and we can see at some point it does the Zerg missile, weapon upgrade, level 1. So we'll assume at that point that the upgrades manager should start thinking once the upgrade has been done. So we're gonna just return if we don't have the upgrades level 1. So we can do this by going into controller, and I think it's something research upgrades. So we have this in here, which is a hash set of all the researched upgrades that we have. So we can do if it does not contain. And then we can go into upgrades dot Zerg missile weapons level 1. And this, by the way, is just stuff that we've entered. I don't have all the upgrades, I just put in those that I need. But basically, whenever there's an upgrade that's missing, you have to go into this table ID.json that gets created on every new game. And it's just a bunch of IDs, so it contains all the IDs of basically everything. So if we search Zerg missile, or how's it called? Maybe with a here. So we have Zerg missiles, weapon level 1, which has an ID of 59. So we just enter these. So if we don't have this, let's just do nothing. And let's assume that the upgrades manager should start thinking about all that stuff afterwards. What we can do is, for each level research, figure out if we should have researched it. And if we did, we'll just queue an order to research it. So we don't really have to care about knowing that the previous one was done, because hopefully our checks will make it so the prerequisite researches will already have been handled. So we're gonna need a list of build requests. So let's go ahead and create a list of build requests, like so. Alright, and the build fulfillments will just be returning the fulfillment here. So quick note on what a build request and what a build fulfillment is. There's two facets to a build request. There's the actual request, and then there's the fulfillment, which describes how much of the request has already been completed. So for example, a build request, there's different types of build requests. It could be a quantity, saying that you want one Zergling, for example. Once one Zergling has been built, your quantity build request will be considered done. And there's the target build requests, which say, please reach 6 Zerglings. And until you have reached 6 Zerglings in like current amount of units that you have, it will keep requesting them. So if you say target 6 and your Zerglings keep dying, then the request will never be fulfilled until you reach 6. And typically in my code, the target build requests are kept forever. So unless you remove them yourself, whereas the quantity build requests, they tend to disappear. So it's more punctual. Hey, I need 5 roaches right now. Please build 5 and then fire and forget. While the target is more, please maintain whatever I ask for. And so this is the request, which contains just the information about what I want to do. And then there's the build fulfillment, and this one will describe the remaining amount that needs to be done, and there's also the amount that's been fulfilled. So it keeps track of how much has been done for it, and it also returns how many more needs to be built. As I mentioned, this will differ, the logic in remaining and fulfilled will differ between a quantity and a target request. So here we'll be queuing requests, and the build fulfillments are just going to be the fulfillment of the requests. Never updated, yeah, of course. So the easiest way to do the build request would be, for example, to add a request. So build request, we just add a new, say, quantity build request. Here you specify the build type. So in our case, it's going to be a research. And then the unit or upgrade type, we're gonna get the upgrades. And let's say we did that for ground armor level 1. By adding a request here, what's gonna happen is Sajuuk will receive an order to build the Zerg ground armor level 1 after the Zerg missiles weapon level 1 has been researched. Now that would be problematic because this code manage is ran on every frame. So we would be adding the research all the time. So we'll need to make sure that we only add it once, and we could do that by, let's just see how it goes. I'll just keep track on the side of the upgrades that we've already requested. So these are unsigned ints. So we're going to add this upgrade, like so, and then just check. Alright, so what this does is a one-time, after Zerg Missiles weapon level 1 has been researched, if I have not requested the Zerg ground armor level 1, I'll just request it. And we can probably run the code real quick. So I set it to real-time false, so this will make the game run really fast. So if we just go in here, alright, so in the top left corner we see the requests. Doesn't tell which one it is, but we'll keep an eye out for ground carapace, which will happen around the probably 5-minute mark. I think the Zerg ranged upgrade happens around that time, finishes around that time. So yeah, while we wait, we can look at a bit of the debug view that we have. We can draw shapes everywhere around, so it's pretty nice. So in orange, for example, I have the creep frontier, which is where I use it to determine where to spawn the next creep tumors, because I'm going to have creep tumors move towards the frontier as much as they want, so they don't need to consider all the creep that there is. So here the missiles research is completing soon. Alright, so something went wrong. I have my logs right here. So it says producer unit for Raven not found. So something went wrong because I definitely did not intend to build a Raven. Alright. So build type, research, upgrades. Interesting. So let's see, research upgrade, get a producer, and then it thinks it wants to build a Raven. I'm a bit confused. We'll check that. So this logic is in the controller. Let's make it smaller. Online research upgrade. So research upgrade is where it happens. There's a method get available producer, which tries to find someone who can do the research action. So in our case, it's supposed to look for an Evo chamber, and of course it did not find a producer for a Raven because it's not supposed to look for a Raven. So that's the exception that's been thrown. unit or ability type. Okay. Sure. Alright, so it's my error message that's wrong. Because it gets the unit type data, but it's research. So of course, if we look at the stable IDs, number 56 is probably going to be a Raven. And what's probably happening is that I just did not input in my tech tree who's the producer for the upgrade. So we're going to do this right now. So we have weapons 3 times, we have armor 3 times, and melee 3 times. So we're gonna go here and do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is going to be melee weapons and crown armor, I think. Crown armor here. Alright, this is gonna make more sense. Let's go again and just make sure that it's fine. Alright, so as we can see here, it's requesting the research and it started. So this is working as intended. Can stop this here and go back to the UpgradesManager. Alright, so this is, I guess it works. It's quite primitive though. So we should be able to choose when we want to research the Zerg ground armors level 1. It's a bit simpler to track, to evaluate when to research the Zerg missiles weapon upgrades. Because in the cases of roaches, they don't attack particularly fast. So the armor has a very negligible impact on their DPS. So it's basically, one way we could see it is basically how much power is gained by doing the research instead of building the roaches that would be equivalent in cost to the research. So for example, the Zerg missiles level 2, let's look it up. We're going to see here. So the Zerg upgrades level 2 is 300 resources, 150 minerals, and 150 gas. And if we look at the roach, here we see it costs 100, so 75 minerals, 25 Vespene gas, and their damage is 16. The upgrade gives +2, while the armor is base 1 and the upgrade gives +1. So in the case of the damage, once we have the weapons level 1, our damage is going to be 18. So current damage is 18. The damage gain is going to be 2. So as I said, we'll disregard the impact of armor just because we're not a fast hitting unit, so the armor has a little impact on our DPS, but not that much compared to, let's say, Zerglings or Marines. So the research costs, we said 300, and a roach costs 100, so we could say the research is worth 3 units, 3 roaches. And so how much damage is 3 roaches? If they do 18 damage times 3, that's 54. So they deal 54 damage. How much units, how many roaches, sorry, do I need before the upgrade is worth it? Well, that would be the increase. So the damage gain is 2. And we have to cover 54, so we would do 54 divided by 2, which is 27. So when we have 27 roaches, the upgrade, in theory, would give us as much damage as spending that money into roaches. So we could say, once we have 27 roaches, try to research Zerg missile weapons level 2. So that's very primitive. Again, if we had many more units, it might not be as straightforward, or maybe this estimation might not be that smart, and maybe there's, I'm not a grandmaster player, so maybe there's more thought to be put into it, but let's go with this mathematical estimation. So we can go ahead and get the units. So if we get the units, we'll use the unit tracker and consider our own units. We'll go with units.roach. And we're going to count them. Let's see here. And the roaches. There. So if we have more than 27 roaches, or equal, we're going to do this. Say what we want to do is this. And let's say we haven't researched. So if we have 27 roaches, we didn't research it yet, then we build it. Alright, so that's pretty straightforward. And we could do this exactly the same for let's do the right upgrade. Zerg missile weapons level 2. And let's do the same computations for the Zerg missile weapons level 3. Here. So in this case, the base damage is going to be 20. We're still going up by 2. The research is 400, I suppose. Yeah, 400 here. So it would be 4 roaches. 4 roaches dealing 20 damage is 80 power. And so we would wait until we have 40 roaches. So if we have 40 roaches, didn't research, queue it, and then we do it. Now, the Zerg weapons level 3 requires some tech to be done. Oops, can remove that. Yeah, the Zerg level 3 needs hive tech. So we can't just add these build requests. So what we're going to do is actually request whatever we need. I've already coded the tech tree to be able to understand, or at least know, that some research has a prerequisite. So as we've seen previously, units, actually tech tree I think it's called. Yeah. So I have in here like the dependencies, who produces what, and I also have, I think, yeah, the prerequisites, which actually I didn't input here. So 3, 1, 2, 3. Gonna take these guys. This. There. So here I would need to input for these requires hive tech. Level 2 requires a lair. And that is true for both of these and both of these. Now in the build order, the lair tech is already included, and typically it finishes, the missiles level 1 finishes after the lair. So for upgrades level 2, we're kind of good. When Sajuuk is trying to process a build request, it's gonna tell that if we're not meeting the dependencies. For simplicity, because these are pretty straightforward, we're just gonna hard code them, and then maybe I can code at a later time something more sophisticated than hard coding all the dependencies in my research code. But for now, it's just going to be simpler if I just add the requests here. So I will need a quantity build requests, and this is a special case. The hive is a hatchery that upgrades, or at least a lair that upgrades into a hive. Not sure if I like it, but it's how I have it right now, so we'll go with that. And for the hive, I believe we need the infestation pit. Hive says lair, which is actually not true, unless I'm mistaken. Arguments. Yeah. All right. So the hive requires an infestation pit, which in turn needs the lair. So here we have it. Yeah. All right. So we're going to build an infestation pit. So in our computation, 40 roaches is the amount of roaches that justify the cost of the research itself. Now we're going to invest into a hive and an infestation pit, which is slightly more costly, I guess. We might increase the number of roaches arbitrarily. This would be 80 supply worth of army. My bot caps at 70 workers, so that would be 150 pop. So we could say, but this is gonna take some time. Let's just leave it at 40 and see how it goes. Maybe it probably needs some tweaking. So we're adding all the prerequisites, which should be done automatically, but we'll just do it this way. And this one we could do a target build request instead. Target quantity, which would be 1. And that's why I said I don't really like the upgrade into. The target build request will ensure that when the infestation pit is destroyed, it gets rebuilt at some point. Now, if the hive gets destroyed, because I didn't code the logic for the target build request for upgrades and research, it's not gonna work. So we'll just pray for the hive not to get destroyed. But anyways, all that we need now is the carapace upgrades. What we could do here is we're just going to do both at the same time. Just assume they're in sync. So when we do missile weapon level 2, we're also going to do ground armor level 2. And we'll go with ground armor level 3. Like so. So what we're missing then is the build order only builds 1 evo chamber. So when we trigger the ground armor level 1, we're also going to build an evo chamber, because why not? So if something, don't know what yet, we're gonna go ground armor level 1, do this, and we're going to do a target build request of build evo chamber, and here we're going to say target 2. So we know we already have one, but if for some reason it was destroyed or whatever, we want to reach 2 evo chambers by that point, and we could probably add it after the Zerg armor has been done. It takes less time, so we'll focus on getting the upgrade ready. Or actually, we get it like this. So we target 1, so we make sure we all, at the very least, have 1 evo chamber to do our upgrades, which should already be handled by the build order, but in any case, if it's just redundant, it's not going to cause any issues. And then make sure we have 2 for the remainder of the game. Oops. Now, when do we do Zerg ground armor level 1? Don't really know. Let's just go with let's just do it right away. So after we've done missile weapons upgrade level 1, we'll go into ground armor plus evo chamber. This is probably going to slow down my first push, because my first push is timed with the Zerg missile weapon upgrades. So instead of investing into reinforcements, we're going to be investing into upgrades. So it might be a good idea to wait a little bit. Ah, why not? Let's just wait a little bit. So I'm not gonna calculate some number here. I'm just gonna put one. The War Manager starts the first attack when you have like 6 roach, I think, or 7 or 8 roaches. So we'll just go with after 12, arbitrary, but after 12 roach has been reached, we're going to be doing more research. So with just that, if we let's do here, we're going to disable attacking because researching these might take more time than I have. I'm probably going to beat the bot before I have StarCraft missile weapons level 3. So just to be able to witness this, we're gonna go ahead and disable start the assault. Yeah. So my bot is just gonna be waiting in the base, doing basically nothing, but we'll be able to see the upgrades going on. I'm not sure if the hive is gonna build properly. So let's just see. Prerequisites is fine. The morph source. Okay, that should be fine. Let's just see how it goes. While we wait, there's a new feature I've been working on. So we can see here a little marker, R26, which is a region 26 of type expand, and there's a little number under it saying safe 0.28, which is a pretty big feature I've been working on the side, which is region decomposition. So I've made an algorithm to decompose the map into regions, and I've built a graph with it. So from each region you know where you can go, and this one, for example, would be a ramp, and it's considered neutral because we don't see it. And it worked pretty well. It identified, basically the way it works is that it identified choke points and decomposed the map into regions which are separated by choke points and ramps. And yeah, it works well. I'm looking forward to actually using it because right now it's cute, it's there, but I'm not actually relying on the data. And if you're curious about how it works, stay tuned. I'm gonna do this in its own video probably. So, and missile attacks level 2 has been queued. I didn't see the carapace. Alright, so we can stop here. Oh, okay, I was looking for the infestation pit. I was worried here because this is just standard code. I didn't invent anything. It's a weird placement for a infestation pit. I'm not sure. I mean, it looks smart, but it's just a coincidence that it's in between the gases. So I think it went for hive tech. Yeah, it's going for a hive now. The ground armor level 2 didn't start. Maybe it's a typo, we'll see. But the melee should start. Actually, the melee has disappeared from the build orders, so we'll look into why they disappeared. They shouldn't be disappearing if, like, for example, you try to do it, but then it's refused because you don't have the prerequisites, which should have been the case, but maybe it considered the hive in progress to be a completed prerequisite. Let's see. Let's go back here. Alright, so if we look into the logs, silly me, we can see research, Zerg ground armor level 2 not supported. Now, in my head, I was like, what do you mean not supported? I've selected the right building, I have the resources, I have the prerequisites, or do I? Well, I don't, because I tried to research Zerg ground armor level 2 before level 1. You probably saw that, we're shouting at your screen, but yeah, I found it. So, yeah, so what happens here is I don't actually get the feedback from this. Which is the game telling me that this is not supported because it happens on the subsequent tick. And in my prerequisites, I actually didn't code it. So we're gonna probably just get something like that. So here, you guys, to get level 1, you need level 2. To get level 2, you need level 3. The opposite, sorry. So this should be a bit better. Now the real problem is we need a hive. And it needs to know that we need a hive. Oops, not units, upgrades. So for Zerg ground armor level 1, you just need an evo chamber, that's fine. And then level 2, you need level 1, level 3, you need level 2. Missile weapons would help if we did melee weapons. Like this. Alright, so this should fix the upgrade thing. But it doesn't fix that there are multiple requirements. And of course, I've just done a dictionary with 1 prerequisites. And yeah, so we're probably just going to change it to support multiple prerequisites. Just a list might work just fine. We'll see from the usage and then here. Alright, so prerequisites. Here you also need a hive. Oh, yeah, of course. Alright, so upgrades and units are different things in StarCraft, or at least StarCraft bots. So you have to know that your prerequisite is an upgrade. And you can't do that with just an unsigned int. Because there is a unit, as we've seen earlier on, Raven is a unit with the same ID, so just from the ID I cannot know if it's an upgrade or a unit that I'm talking about. So I'm probably going to need something more sophisticated than just a list of ints. I'll probably need just a class, which would be a prerequisite, and specify if it's a tech or a unit, so I can do the proper checks. Alright, so let's do this. Gonna create a class, probably in tech tree. Let's just close the other things. Alright, so this is probably going to be an abstract class. Oops. Which will have 2 subclasses. So we're going to have the unit prerequisite and the tech prerequisite. So we have this guy and this guy. This could probably be an interface, actually. Yeah. So, whoops. Which would have a single method that will tell you if the requirement has been met. So prerequisite that is met. That's all you need. And like that. So your requirement is gonna take just the, in this case it's gonna be the unit type. Read-only field unit type. And in this case, it's gonna be a tech. So call it upgrade ID. Upgrade type, not sure. Let's just call it upgrade ID. Not sure I'll call it other places, so. Alright, so here we already have the code to know if the unit prerequisite is met. It's in the controller here. So basically we're going to be returning this. Like that. And controller.get units, import the units tracker, and the prerequisite is ourself. Like that. So that's pretty easy. And the research is also super easy. We check if the controller is aware that we have researched the upgrade. Just like that. And then in our controller here instead, well actually in the tech tree, we're going to have here. Alright, so now we have this and we can go into the controller and instead all prerequisites requisites and just call the is met. There we go. So with this, I've been saying that a lot, with this we should be fine now. Because in the case of a unit, we check our own units if we have that one. And in the case of a research, we just check if we have an upgrade ID. Let's get it. Alright, so weapons level 1 has been done. We're just waiting for armor level 1, which has started. So we have missiles level 2, that's up and running, and then this one, ground armor is waiting and queued. Nice. So that's good. We'll just wait for tech level 3 to go, but we've seen the pit work, we've seen the hive work, but this should look good. So we do have the resources. Okay, there it is. I don't know, it took some time, not sure why, but yeah, we got our upgrades running. Now is it efficient? We'll see when we play actual games against other bots and not the very hard opponent. We could still check if we revert the War Manager. We should be able to go through the hard AI pretty easily, and this should not affect too much, but we'll see like how much of an impact it has over the course of a somewhat normal game against a hard AI. It's gonna weaken the first push, or at least the follow-up of the first push, which is fine. I already wanted to tweak the attack pattern so that the first attack is more conservative and just try to see if it can get some free damage in and just fall back if it sees like the opponent is well prepared or not. Because right now it's just gonna smash the army into the enemy main and cross the fingers. But yeah, if we are more conservative, doesn't matter that much that the push is is weaker because we're not trying to win. It's very rare that the first push wins. It's more like if the opponent is really not prepared or has like undefended drones, or maybe is trying to be super greedy. But if it's not, like here we'll see these are what, 16 roaches in total, and like it's just gonna fail at the ramp. This is not gonna win. So here I would love it for my army to just retreat once it sees like, oh, there's way enough marauders to push us, to repel that push. And anyways, they didn't take their second expanse, so eco, on the eco side of things, we're good. And here we should have ground carapace. Yeah, okay, so it's very negligible. That's nice, that's nice. Yeah, makes no difference against an A hard bot. Obviously it's not very strong, but alright, I think I'm satisfied with this. So we got our upgrades as the game progresses, so that's great. Now we should be writing some tests. I have a test project. I did write some tests, and I started from 0, so at the end of season 3 I had a grand total of 0 tests, and I wrote a couple in between seasons, but now that season 4 has started, so I'm tempted to just go straight on and code more features. I would love for season 4 to end, to have a finish in Division 1. But if I just write tests all the time, I'm not gonna get there, if you see what I mean. But at the same time, if my code breaks all the time, well, maybe I'll regret not having more tests. So Sajuuk is there, still doing placements. I joined in late, so just like a bunch of other people. But yeah, I'm probably gonna start in Division 2. Last time I finished 5th, I peaked at 2, so we're not that far from Division 1, but there's still plenty of work to do. I hope the upgrades is gonna get me some wins against other bots where the games tend to go longer, because the other types of matches that I lose is anything that's a rush. I don't deal very well with rushes. I have some basic defense, but it's not very good, which is probably the next thing I'll be coding. So quick update, I was going to commit that code, and I felt like doing a little bit of cleanup. So the first thing you'll see here is that the manage function is a bit tidied up. So I've put my code into 3 methods, research tier 1, 2, and 3. So obviously tier 3 is just the upgrades level 3, and 2 is 2, and 1 is 1. I've also added in early return here. So once we're done doing our research, there's no need to do all that logic. It's not much logic, but performance is important. So if we can avoid doing some computations, we'll do. Next thing I've changed is the build order, the build requests, sorry. For the Evo chamber specifically, instead of adding target build requests over and over, we'll just use one, and we'll change the target quantity over time. So in the constructor, we add it right away, so it starts at 0, so it has no effect essentially. And in tier 1, at some point here we're going to request 1 just to make sure that we have our prerequisite, and then later on we'll increase it to 2, and once we're done with all the researches, we bring it back down to 0, because, well, if it gets destroyed, we don't want to waste money on it because we don't need it anymore. So that's what it is. And also I did a little trick, because I noticed that the second Evo chamber oftentimes was starting building before we even started the first research, which is not very useful, because the reason we want 2 Evo chambers is for the tier 2 upgrades. So what I did instead is we'll build the second Evo chamber so that it finishes at the same time as the Zerg ground armor level 1 does. So we get the remaining research time, and when it's close enough to the Evo Chamber build time, I added a little buffer to take into account the time that the drone takes to get there, but it's 10 seconds is a bit big. I think 5 seconds is fine, so that we build the Evo Chamber at the very last moment. Also, I've made sure, by default I had coded that the research would get queued all the time, because I do research for roach, which is glial reconstitution and the tunneling clause. And at first in my build, these were like close to each other, and it would block my build request. So the simplest solution I found was to queue it, just so that it can do everything else after. So I just reviewed it. I put it at the end of my build and still put Q equals to true. Before it was over here. So before we had that, tunneling clause was like 75% complete or something like that. So a waste of resources there. So I just put it back down. And this one gets queued. These ones, by default, will not get queued. So we don't do a research if there's no Evo Chamber available, which is not already researching. So we can spend our money on more drones or on more roaches. And then once the Evo Chamber is ready, then only then we can start doing the research. I'm probably going to publish this as a Sajuuk version 2.4, and hopefully it'll get me some wins. We'll keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned if you like that content. I'll get better. I'll get better. It's a first for me, coding and recording and speaking at the same time. So if you feel like it, please, by all means, just tell me how you like the video. If there's things I should be doing better, if you're things that you liked in particular, and as always, if there's some areas of the code that you'd like to see next, feel free to comment, and I'll make sure to read them all, and maybe I'll get a video out on your favorite subject. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, helps a lot, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks!